afternoon, Commander.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. What's your name?
My name is Johnny Pearson, and I am your first question for today.
Johnny, thank you for having a question ready, and I'm ready. And just greetings to everybody at ShipLink. Thank you for organizing the questions, and I'm very much looking forward to speaking with everyone.
Your first question is it cool with 0G?
Is it cool with 0G? So picture that this is you, Johnny, and you're floating around inside the spaceship. It is so cool to be able to not just be stuck down in your chair, but to be able to tumble and fly and do 1,000 somersaults if you want, and you can move a car around with your fingertip, and it's like magic. You would love it. 0G or weightlessness is just like perpetual fun.
Okay. Thank you. I think we are moving on to the next question now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Hello, sir. I am your second question. And
Yes.
your second question is, what exercises do you need to do daily to make sure you can walk when you return to Earth?
What exercises do you need to do daily to be able to walk when you return to Earth? We have, at first we didn't do any exercises in space. We were just trying to see whether you could stay alive. But after you start living in space for a few days and then a few weeks, you really need to exercise your body or it starts to really degrade. And so what we found is you need exercise to keep your heart strong, you need exercise to keep your muscles strong, and you need exercise to keep your bones dense, or you'll lose all three. And so we have 3 different types of exercise equipment on the space station. We have a bicycle, but it's a bicycle without a seat, because you don't need a seat without gravity. So it's more like a unicycle. And the fun part is you can unicycle once around the world in 90 minutes. So I unicycled around the world while I was exercising. And then we have a treadmill, also a big spinning treadmill, and you're held down on the treadmill. You have elastics or big bungees attached to your waist and attached to your shoulder. How do you like my little model here of myself?
Very cool, sir.
Yeah, it looks like me, huh? Anyway, and so you have these big bungees on your waist and on your shoulders, and they hold you down on the treadmill so you can run. It's sort of almost like flying a little bit on a treadmill, but it works all right. And then the last piece of equipment is a resistive exercise machine. So you can do sort of the more traditional lifting and squatting type exercises. And with that, my heart stayed strong, my cardiovascular was good. I actually got stronger while I was in space. I got 20% stronger, but I still lost a little bit of bone across my hip area because I just couldn't exercise the upper parts of my legs and the big plate hip bone that's across my hips. But when I came back, within about a year and a half, it grew back again. So we're learning. Our equipment isn't perfect up there, but it's getting better.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, Commander Hadfield.
Hi.
What is your inspiration for becoming an astronaut?
What was my inspiration for becoming an astronaut? My initial inspiration was reading science fiction books. I read H.G. Wells, and I read Arthur Conan Doyle, and I read Arthur C. Clarke, and I read Edgar Rice Burroughs, and all of these fanciful sort of stories of things that didn't really exist, but they sort of expanded my understanding of what might be possible. And then I started watching science fiction on television, like with Star Trek, and then in the movies with 2001: A Space Odyssey. So my initial inspiration to become an astronaut was all based on fantasy. But the important part was then it became reality, and people actually started flying in space. And it was the first two people walking on the moon, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. When they walked on the moon, I was just about to turn 10. And it was the combination of fantasy and things that people were really doing, impossible things that people were actually doing, that really inspired me to try and change who I was. And I decided to become an astronaut when it was impossible. I had no astronaut program. We had no space agents. I watched those guys walk on the moon, and I thought impossible things happen as a result of a large amount of work. So I'm going to start to turn myself into what I'm dreaming about. And amazingly enough, I flew in space 3 times and commanded the International Space Station.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there, Commander. My question is, out of all the experiments carried out on the International Space Station, which do you think has had the most impact on life on Earth?
We've carried out nearly 2,000 different experiments up there, and some of them are just for testing spaceships. You know, we want to build you a better spaceship. So if you choose to go to the moon, or maybe even go to Mars, that we know how to build a spaceship that's safe for you. So a lot of the experiments are to test and build spaceships. One of the really cool experiments is collecting subatomic particles from the universe to try and figure out what dark matter and dark energy are. But it hasn't completed yet. If that one actually teaches us what dark matter and dark energy are, that will probably be the most significant experiment. But I think for now, there are experiments on blood testing machines, on protein crystal growth for fighting some diseases. But maybe the most significant ones are just understanding the world better, looking at the changes in the chemistry of our atmosphere, measuring the temperatures of the surfaces of the oceans, and truly photographing and understanding the surface of the world the way that we do. I think maybe the one that affects us most is self-awareness of the actual health of our planet. But the beauty of the space station is it does all of those things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commander. My
Hi.
question is, how are the plants anchored on the ISS, and how is the water delivery system working?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do we anchor and water plants when there's no gravity? Plants grow towards the light, generically. They rely on photosynthesis, and so they're you know, if you watch a sunflower, it tracks the sun during the day because it's soaking up the sun's rays. And so we can design the plants to grow by deciding where to put their light. And then we put them in sort of like a moss, spongy type of root structure that their roots can go into. So sort of like peat or moss is at the base. And the beauty of peat or moss is if you just put water at one end of it, it wicks due to capillary flow. It'll wick through the substance of the substrate of the soil so that it can get to the plant. And so we have a metered delivery system through some sort of bed, hydroponic kind of bed, that then waters the plants. And it works pretty well. But we still don't have it right. We don't grow crops on the space station yet. We're still just testing it. And maybe you'll have a better idea for how to do it. That's the best one we've come up with so far.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you.
Hello, Commander. Are there a few things that made you go, whoa, I'm in space?
I would love to bring you up to the space station for 10 minutes. You would say nothing but, whoa, the whole time. Because, number one, you'd be weightless, which it is so different. If right now I could shut off gravity at your school, just for 10 minutes, you would be overwhelmed with the difference of it. And then imagine if every time you pulled yourself over to the window of the room that you're in, the entire world was going by. You could see all of Africa and cross it in 6 minutes, or you could see a sunrise or a sunset every 46 minutes. it's a magnificent place to be. And every time you grab something, you can just let go of it and have it float in space in front of you. It's an overwhelmingly different place. And when you go into a place that's very different, it makes you think differently. You start to sort of reevaluate a lot of your unspoken assumptions. So it's a great place for invention and discovery. We say "whoa" up there a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Commander. Have you ever seen junk in space before? And is it a big problem?
Do we see space junk? Normally, the space junk is going at least 5 miles a second. So, that's about 5 times faster than a bullet or more. So you can't see it, but you hear it hit your spaceship. If you sit quietly by the wall and wait, you can hear little bings and ricochet sounds of little bits of the universe bouncing off the outside of your spaceship. We have very thin armor. But most of the stuff that hits our spaceship is natural, like little grains of sand. But they're going 30 kilometers a second, immensely fast. And you hear those. Occasionally, there's man-made debris that hits the spaceship, but it's one of the concerns. It's a bigger concern in the media than it is for the astronauts. I mean, and if you watch the movie Gravity, the way they portray it is ridiculous. It looks like a dump truck caused an avalanche, and of course it looks nothing like that. But once in a while, we know that we're going to hit a big piece of something, and then we fire the thrusters on the space station to avoid that piece so that we don't hit it. But that only happens maybe once a year. So it's a concern, but it's not a big, overwhelming concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Did you have much fear going to space for the first time or on subsequent trips?
Did I have much fear?
Yeah.
Well, fear is the condition you're in where you don't know what you're supposed to do, right? You're afraid. Someone surprises you and you startle and it goes into your veins and you're fearful or you're afraid. And you try, as an astronaut, you don't want adrenaline in your veins. Because the whole purpose of your body squirting a tiny bit of adrenaline into your veins is to momentarily make you stronger or make you able to run faster. Because for the last couple million years, danger normally meant a threat to life, and you had to run faster than a bear or run faster than a tiger or something. But adrenaline is bad for you. It does damage to you, so you don't want it very much. So, but adrenaline is a terrible way to fly a spaceship. It's not the right evolution for us to be able to pilot a spaceship. And so you don't want to get into a position where the only way that you can react to it is to have adrenaline squirt into your veins. You want to be ready for every single thing that could happen. And so there's a fundamental difference between danger and fear. They're not the same thing. Fear is your unprepared reaction to risk. And what astronauts do for their whole lives is try and anticipate danger and understand the risk and then learn everything there is to know about what that might be, so that when it happens, instead of just being afraid, you know what to do. You've already changed what your instinctive reaction is going to be. And so therefore, we're not afraid. It's not because we're brave, just say. My dog decided to bark. It's not because we're brave, it's because we're ready, and there's a difference. And it's really true for life as well. You can sort of go through your whole life with your fingers crossed, hoping things won't happen. But I think instead of just crossing your fingers, you're better served to get ready. Learn how to give somebody CPR. Learn what to do if you have a tire blowout in your car. Learn, prepare. Use the time that's available to always try and change yourself into someone who's getting ready. Because then you're not just afraid and stressed all the time. You're sort of calm and confident, and I think you get more out of life. And so, no, I wasn't afraid of my space flights, but mostly because I spent 21 years of my life getting ready.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commander.
Hi.
How is your spacesuit sealed once you're inside it?
Oh, cool question. I've worn a few different spacesuits. Let's just use this little model here. This is the Russian spacesuit, and it's got this big. I'll hold it up close here. It's got this big zipper here and a big zipper here, and then a wraparound zipper underneath. If you undo those zippers, then what sticks out at you is like the mouth of a bag, sort of like the open mouth of a bag like this. And what we do is we open up that bag and we climb in through the front of this suit. We put our legs down in, we put our arms in the armholes, and our head up through, and now we have sort of this bag projecting out of our chest like that. And then you pull the bag tight, and then you wrap 2 super heavy elastics around it so that the air cannot leak. And then you close it, and you tuck it in next to the right side of your belly here, and then you do up these outer zippers. And it's sort of like sealing yourself inside a balloon. You still have a hole in your helmet, but as soon as you pull your helmet down and click it into place, you're perfectly sealed inside your suit. And that's the Russian Sokol spacesuit. The American orange suit is similar. You climb in through the back, and then it's got a great big heavy hermetic zipper that goes up across your back. And then if you're doing a spacewalk, I don't really have a, oh, we'll use this silly thing here. This is a lovely cloth space model somebody made for me. But this spacesuit, which is the one you do spacewalks in, oh, actually I have a better picture. So this suit here is the one that we go outside into the universe in. And if you look closely, the gloves have a seam where they attach. And so the gloves click into place on a metal lock. And then the lower part of our body and the upper part of our body, they come up together, and there's a big pressure seal around there. And then you can see the helmet. If you look, there's this red sort of matching plate, and on the bottom of the helmet there's the same red matching plate, and the helmet comes down and clicks into place, and then this is the locking mechanism on the helmet to lock your helmet into place. So this suit is different in that it comes in multiple pieces. There's a leg piece, a chest piece, gloves that go on, and then a helmet that goes. The helmet that goes on the top. But of course, a leakage is a real concern for us. And so once we get fully into the suit, then we pressurize it up, and you have to stay really still in the suit for about 5 minutes, and you watch the sensors to make sure that you didn't get like one little hair. If we had one little hair across one of these seals, then it would cause a micro leak that you'd still have to deal with. So we're quite concerned about it. And then the last thing is, on this suit, right down here is a pressure gauge that the whole time you always look down at to see the pressure. And then on the top of our chest is a computer, and it's constantly measuring pressure. And if it senses a change in pressure over time, it'll ring alarms into your headset. So yeah, it's a big concern of how we seal ourselves in each of those different suits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commander. Are you able to take any luxury items into space?
Are we able to take any luxury items into space? A few. You're allowed to bring a package that's about this big for 6 months in space. So anything you can put in a package like that. So, I mean, what would you bring? I brought a few souvenirs. I brought this watch because I thought it would be a nice souvenir to have. So I had this. This is one of the astronaut watches. They're certified for space flight. Very nice watch. I brought a few things for my wife. We had some special wedding rings remade. A few small things for my children and my parents, that type of stuff. But NASA provides, and Russia provide all the things you really need: food, clothes, and we keep things up on the space station. There's a guitar permanently up there. There's movies, some books. They send things back up and forth to us, and all the food is provided, and it's a nice variety of food. So it's not really luxury items. You're just allowed to bring a few personal items up and back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commander. Where did you pack your guitar when travelling back and forth to Earth?
So it wasn't actually my guitar. It was the NASA psychiatrists that put that guitar on the space station because they recognized that music is just important for mental health. And so that guitar has been up there since August of 2001. So it's been up there for 14 years. So it's gone around the world, I don't know, 100,000 times. You know, it's permanent part of space station equipment. And it stays permanently up there. So all I brought were a new set of guitar strings and some special, see if I have one here. Oh yeah, I had some special guitar plectrums, some guitar picks made that were commemorative for our space flight. And so these were some of the personal items that I brought up as well, so I could play guitar up there. But no, the guitar stays permanently, and there are enough astronauts who are also guitarists that it gets played pretty much every day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commander.
Hi.
What is the most dangerous situation you've ever been in?
The most dangerous situation I've ever been in. On my very first rocket launch, when I was flying the space shuttle, and it was the space shuttle that's named Atlantis, it only takes 9 minutes to get you to space. But in that 9 minutes, the odds of being killed were 1 in 38, which are really bad odds. You know, that's an extremely high probability of death. So the most dangerous thing I've ever done in my whole life was to fly a spaceship. And it's still very dangerous because you have to push yourself through the atmosphere and you have to control such an enormous explosion. The space shuttle burned fuel at 12 tons a second. If you could imagine trying to control an explosion that is burning up fuel at 12 tons a second. The space shuttle did that. I've done a few dangerous things. I was a fighter pilot flying F-18s, and I was a test pilot and did a lot of interesting different work as a military test pilot. But the most dangerous thing I've ever done is fly a rocket ship.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Commander. Quick question. How do you feel about the NASA's budget cuts, and how do you think it will affect the future space exploration?
How do I feel about NASA's budget cuts and the impact on it? NASA's always had budget cuts. Once in a while, they have a budget increase. But every government department has cuts. You know, the Department of Fisheries and the Department of Treasury and even the military, they all get cuts. So it's more a matter of how do you become productive with the money that you're given. And if you look at what NASA's doing right now, it's pretty incredible. 6 people permanently on a space station that they built, driving by Pluto and seeing the surface of Pluto for the first time, looking at a moon of Saturn this week, where we actually drove a spaceship through water that is spraying off the surface of one of the moons of Saturn. And that water actually feeds the rings of Saturn. It's an amazing discovery, and we're wondering if maybe there's life on that moon of Saturn. And all the probes that are at Mars, and then the hundreds of probes that are going around the Earth itself, and the fact that we just mapped Mercury for the very first time. There's a huge number of really worthwhile projects going on. So you can focus on the fact that the budget isn't as big as you'd like it to be, But I would let the administrator worry about that. I worry about all the amazing things that are actually happening. And the fact NASA just let a contract with Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic in order to use his rocket to put satellites into Earth orbit. They call it little CubeSats. You know, that just happened. So, yeah, there's a lot of people focus on problems. I'm a lot more interested in focusing on solutions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commander Hadfield. What is the most bizarre experiment you did on the ISS?
Bizarre experiment. Bizarre is in the eye of the beholder, right? There was a Japanese performance artist, and one of the typical artistic styles in Japan, you've probably seen it, is the moon reflected in water. You see it in all sorts of Japanese stylistic paintings, the moon and a reflection in water and looking at it. And a Japanese performance artist thought, what if from the spaceship, if you could get the Earth reflected in water, floating water? He thought that would be a really cool thing. And so he designed a piece of apparatus, like a long cylinder, where we would mount the camera at one end of the cylinder, and then I would inject water into the cylinder and have it tumble around. And then I would take pictures with the cylinder up against the window of the spaceship. I would take pictures of the refracted Earth floating in the water balls that were tumbling and floating inside this tube. Kind of a weird idea, but it was a lot of fun. One day I got a bunch of towels around and I set everything all up, and then I took a whole bunch of pictures of that part of the world and then cleaned the whole mess up. I haven't seen him since I got back from my space flight. I'm interested to see how his experiment came out. But I think that might have been the most bizarre one I did.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Commander. If you were in charge of the space program, what would you do next?
If I was in charge of the space program, what would I do next? I think what we're doing makes a lot of sense. I think the UK, by forming the UK Space Agency, that was a good move because it helps to organize all the different or the different departments. I know that Tim Peake is going to launch for space in just a little over a month, and I'll be over in the UK on Stargazing Live to talk with Brian Cox and Darrell O'Brien to help talk about Tim Peake's launch. So, you know, when you talk about being in charge of the space program, it's decisions like that one that make sense. But you always need to be looking at destinations. Where should we be trying to go, 50 years from now? And I think what Japan and Russia and India and China and the United States and the European Space Agency, all of them are going to Mars as a long-term goal. We're nowhere near going to Mars yet. It's still, we have to invent all sorts of things first. But for a long-term goal, I think that makes sense. The real question is, what do we do to get ready? And to go from the space station, where we'll be for another 10 or 15 years, and then I think the obvious next place to go is the moon, because it's only 3 days away. And all we've ever done is just very briefly visit the moon. We need to prove how we can live there for a long period. And you need to give yourself the ability to get everything wrong and still survive. And we need to test all that equipment on the moon. So I think if you look at how we explored Antarctica for the last 120 years, that model of initial exploration and then developing technology and getting better and better, I think that's the model we'll follow on the moon. And you have a chance to go live on the moon if you want. It's totally up to you. And I think that's what we'll do next. Even if I'm not in charge, I think that's what we'll do next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Commander Hadfield. My name's Moya, and I've been stalking your poor but very lovely PA Julia for the past 6 months. I just wanted to say a very big thank you on behalf of everyone at Shiplake for spending time with us today. You've been absolutely brilliant, lived up to your reputation and everything we know about you. And I'd just like to ask the boys and girls in the audience to give a big round of applause in their appreciation.
Thank you. I just, if you can still hear me, I just wanted to say one more thing before we sign off. And that is, that last question of where we should go next, what we should be doing next. I think it's a worthwhile question to ask yourself as well. What is your personal version of Mars? Like, if your life goes perfectly, what do you want to be when you're 45? What do you want to be doing? And it's a hard question to answer because you don't know all the choices yet. So here's what I recommend you do. The next time you go into a library or like into a big bookstore, notice where you go. Notice what parts of the bookstore or the library that you naturally go to. Because I bet you don't go to every single bookshelf exactly the same. There are probably 3 or 4 or 5 parts of a library or a bookstore that really naturally are interesting to you because that's what's in your heart. And then do yourself the favor of saying, those are the things that I am really fundamentally interested in. And then say, so what is my Mars? Assuming that these are the 5 things that are really interesting to me, what jobs are there? What could I be? What might I someday, if it went perfectly? And you could make up those 5 things. I'm really interested in rocket engines, horses, diamond mining, heart surgery, and comic books. Those are the 5 things I'm always fascinated in. Well, just look at all those 5 things and say, well, I could be a veterinarian or a jockey, or I could be a heart surgeon, or I could build an artificial heart. Or I could figure out how to get a restartable solid rocket, or there's all sorts of specific things you could then start dreaming about for yourself. And then once you've given yourself those long-term goals, I think then it's a lot easier to decide what to do next, what to do this weekend, what to do this Christmas holiday, what book should I read, what show should I watch, maybe I should start learning Japanese because that's what I'm interested in, or I should start whatever. Because life is not about your big, long-term, grandiose proclamations. Life is just really all about what you chose to do next. Life is just the small collected addition of each of the little things you chose to do next. So just remember that you're the one choosing. And try and choose so that it's really pursuing something that is right in your very heart of hearts. And then it's amazing where life can lead. Thanks again for inviting me in today.
Well, thank you so much, and many of us look forward to your book tour where we come to Rickmansworth to see you again.
Great.
Thanks a
Super.
lot.
I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.